wrong, but for our government just to say, okay, well, your debt is completely forgiven. Obviously, they have an agenda for that. They need votes in November. So the timing is a pure coincidence there as well. But it's completely unfair.
Completely unfair that students that have already labored and paid for years and years and years, this huge burden of financial student loan debt, that would be forgiven is unfair. And she won't stand for people getting their loans forgiven, except, as you probably can already tell, she has had loans forgiven. Now, I'm not the one that discovered that or even publicized it. Joe Biden, the White House, and apparently a new social media manager, who we're gonna talk about a little bit, decided to take it hard to Republican hypocrites who have been talking so much about how unfair this is. So you can see there, the White House tweeting out, Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene had $183,504 in PPP loans forgiven. And that was just the first blow, because she was not the only person who was crowing about how unfair this is and how terrible it is. So they started identifying so many of them. Now we're gonna give you the response of Marjorie Greene in just a minute, but they pointed out Vern Buchanan had $2.3 million in PPP loans forgiven. He apparently is an incredibly wealthy member of Congress, and yet for some reason desperately needed these loans. Mark Wayne Mullen had 1.4 million. Kevin Hearn had 1 million. And all of these they're very specific, very stripped down responses to a whole bunch of nonsense and BS. And I love the fact that it's all just the fact. Just the indisputable fact that you are complaining about something that you effectively benefited from, and that you benefited many, many, many times over, literally hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars, that you were perfectly fine to have forgiven for you, but now that a student is getting it forgiven, suddenly you have a big problem with it. And it's one of the most effective, like, sustained campaigns I've seen over the course of a day on social media from the White House. And as long as I can remember, they had something like 150,000 retweets on the main one. Like, people really liked seeing the 1-2 punch of a Democratic president literally doing something that was popular and that they campaigned on. They did it, and then they defended it vigorously on social media. And that is what people have been waiting to see for a long time, Brett. And so it was great to see it here.
70% of Americans support some student loan forgiveness. And this is the lowest number that people have thrown out there. This is a policy that 70% of Americans support. And I love that the Republicans are trying so hard to be against it. And the reason is because Biden did it. That's it. The Republicans have said very clearly they don't want to do pretty much anything, and that's their main position. They want to do all the stuff that happens behind the scenes. Nothing happens more behind the scenes than PPP loans, of which something like $600 billion has already been forgiven. The average amount, the max number you can get in forgiveness for your loans in the Biden's plan is $20,000, and that's if you have a Pell Grant. It's probably it's 10 grand is the normal one.
10K.
There is
grants even.
Yeah. And the average amount that was forgiven by the PPP loan was much higher than that in their overall amount. The average dollar amount forgiven for a PPP loan was $72,500. And these guys. And then let's talk about what they're angry about. They're angry that you're trying to get educated. They're angry that you did the stuff that Republicans complain the left and the millennials never ever do. Oh, why aren't you getting off your ass and trying to better yourself? That's what college ostensibly is. And not only that, that's what our boomer parents told us to do. And we did the thing that the conservative generation guided us to do. They're just mad about what we learned there. And that plays out everywhere else in their politics, all the way down to elementary school students.
Yeah, look, they have to do what they're doing. They have to make this seem as if it's unfair, as if it's unpopular, and to some extent it'll work. They will move the numbers on it for a few points somehow. I mean, they made the ACA unpopular for people who finally got health insurance. Some of them still weren't happy to even have it because they were told that it was socialism or whatever. So it'll move the numbers a few points, but like, if you're a young conservative and you just got $10,000 of your student loan debt canceled, like, you can't be that enraged by it. And that's a limiting factor, I think, on the Republicans' abilities here. Super brief, because we got other stuff we got to get to, but what do you want to say?
Just people convincing you that the Obamacare is socialism. The fire department's more socialist than Obamacare. There's no private fire system that we're paying into. It's a public fire system. The military and the police department are way more socialist than the Romney Care, Obamacare, ACA.
Yeah, 100%. By the way, I just want to mention one last one. If we can go to graphic 4, Congressman Matt Gaetz, $482,000 in PPP loans forgiven. And by the way, none of this is intended to shame any of the ones who actually need it, because by the way, PPP had tons of fraud, and it's possible some of that is included in this. But it's to point out that it makes sense for the government to do things like this when there's a major crisis. COVID was a major crisis. These loans were needed in most cases to keep people in work, like keep people employed. The student loan debt crisis was and is still a major crisis. Even after this cancellation, it is a major crisis where more needs to be done. So they are not saying, like Nate Silver is trying to pretend that like, well, the Democrats don't realize they're actively saying that PPP was bad, but now it's like this, so that's bad. That's not what they're saying at all. They're saying the government can, should, must act when it's demanded. And in both of these cases, it was. That's what they're saying. By the way, in the response, so they pointed out Marjorie Greene first. She did this big tweet where there was transphobia and stuff, but it ends with, "Go to hell, Joe." Okay, I mean,
it's so stupid too, because student loan, essentially this whole thing can be understood as a voucher program now. They advocate for vouchers, but you just got a $10,000 secondary education or a college level education voucher. And that's what they want. And you get in the voucher system, you go to the college the school that you want. This is people going to the college that they wanted.
Exactly.
Rather than paying into a tax system that funds that. This is essentially 100%. Ridiculous.
For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/thedamagereport. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.